As football fans, we throw around the term generational way too often, especially when talking about running backs, but on rare occasions, it is appropriate. Christian McCaffrey always seems to find a way to be successful, whether the players around him are helping him or not. McCaffrey was dealing with Kyle Allen as his quarterback and an offensive line that was mediocre at best last season and still put up some incredible numbers. I'm a firm believer in the idea that teams should generally stay away from running backs early in the draft and should avoid paying them a lot of money in free agency, but none of those rules apply when talking about Christian McCaffrey. The Panthers' offense last season was Christian McCaffrey. When the offensive line couldn't get things done in the run game, they just throw it to him instead. There were even times when I thought McCaffrey was making his offensive line look good, which is pretty much unheard of. For the most part, it didn't matter what the guys around him were doing. You put the ball in McCaffrey's hands, good things happen. One thing that I think sets McCaffrey apart from other good running backs in the NFL is his vision. If his offensive line creates a gap, he's gonna find it. It doesn't matter whether the run was designed for that gap or not, and this is really important because only the best offensive lines can consistently open the gaps that runs are designed for, and the Carolina Panthers offensive line was definitely not the best last season. This formation is a variation on strong tight that heavily favors the right side. There's a fullback on the right side of the screen and an extra offensive lineman lined up at tight end on the right. And the other side of the formation is extremely light. The tight end, Greg Olsen, is lined up at left tackle, and then there's a wide receiver, Curtis Samuel, lined up right next to him on the left. Since the formation favors the right side so heavily, the run is designed to hit the right side or the front side C-gap, which is right here in green. But for that to happen, the right tackle, Darrell Williams, has to advance to the second level to block the linebacker, Bryce Hager, who's filling the C-gap. McCaffrey sees that Williams is late in advancing to the second level and won't get the block off in time, so if he hits that frontside C-gap, he'll only gain a few yards. However, he sees that the backside C-gap is pretty much wide open because of a nice double-team block from his tight end Greg Olsen and wide receiver Curtis Samuel, so he hits that instead and gains about 6 yards. The Panthers' offensive line did not do a good job on this play, but McCaffrey made up for it with his vision and ability to improvise. If he had hit that frontside C-gap like the play design called for, he probably would have only gained a yard or two, but since he was able to see the backside C-gap open up, he gets a solid 6-yard gain. This type of run happened so often last year and sometimes resulted in a huge gain because defenders commit to filling one gap, then McCaffrey suddenly turns to another. This play is just a dive up the middle, and McCaffrey doesn't like what he sees from the frontside A gap, so he switches to the backside just as his center is advancing to the second level. McCaffrey made it look like he was going to continue up the frontside A gap, but as he sees that block developing from his center, he cuts back and explodes downhill. It doesn't really matter where the run is designed to go. If a hole opens up, McCaffrey's going to find it. This is a designed stretch to the left, but when McCaffrey gets the ball, he sees that there's a linebacker, Quincy Williams, and a safety, Ronnie Harrison, who both have good angles on him if he just continues outside. So instead of continuing his run outside, he cuts back through a hole and burns everyone's pursuit angles in the process. He's got the quickness to stop on a dime and cut upfield, and the speed to leave all the defensive backs in the dust. Even with mediocre offensive line performance, McCaffrey still finds ways to make positive yardage by relying on his vision and elusiveness. There's a limit on how effective a running back can be when their offensive line isn't performing. So like I said earlier, when the Panthers couldn't get the run game going, they just throw McCaffrey the ball instead. There were 6 games last season when McCaffrey had more receiving yards than rushing yards, which is just insane for a running back. McCaffrey's a real threat as a receiver, and I honestly think that if that was his primary position, he'd be among the best slot receivers in the league. This play seems pretty simple, but it shows how McCaffrey displays an extensive understanding of how defensive coverages work. The defender that lines up opposite McCaffrey is in a flat zone at the top of the screen, the corner's bailing into his deep third, and the linebacker on McCaffrey's side is in a hook zone over the middle. This cover 3 zone concept creates a soft spot between the hook zone linebacker and the flat zone edge defender, and McCaffrey knows exactly what he needs to do to exploit that. He angles his route to the outside to draw the edge defender outside, then sharply cuts inside to get in the soft spot and get himself open enough to make the catch. McCaffrey's ability to understand coverages combined with his proficiency as a route runner makes him an absolute matchup nightmare for defenses. He can run any route in the book and just cannot be covered by a linebacker in the open field. On this play from Week 11, the Falcons made the mistake of putting a linebacker, Devontae Campbell, in man coverage on McCaffrey, and he made him pay for it. He ran a pretty simple in route from out of the backfield, but got wide open because of his juke at the top of the route. McCaffrey exploded out of the juke and lost Campbell in the process. Kyle Allen knew exactly where he was going with the ball as soon as he took the snap. He was staring McCaffrey down the entire time, and he had no intention of moving to another read because he was sure McCaffrey was going to win this matchup. This is so hard to defend because you literally can't cover this guy with a linebacker and almost have to bring a safety or even a nickelback into the box just to cover McCaffrey. Earlier in the season, he made an even more impressive play as a receiver, and I'm not exaggerating when I say McCaffrey can run any route you give him. He's again lined up as a slot receiver, and this time he's got a stop-and-go route that combines a hitch with a slant. When McCaffrey gets to the top of his route, he stops and acts like he's going to catch the ball to make the linebacker jump and lose a step. Then he explodes laterally and catches the ball on the run. The Jaguars made the same mistake that the Falcons made by putting Myles Jack, a linebacker, on McCaffrey, and he punished them with an 18-yard touchdown on a phenomenal route. The same traits that make McCaffrey such a good route runner also make him a really difficult guy to tackle in the open field. His legs are super strong, which makes him one of the shiftiest backs in the league, and he can stop his momentum without hesitation to accelerate in a completely different direction. If you've watched any McCaffrey highlights, I'm sure you've seen this one, but I think it's a really good representation of his lateral quickness and explosiveness. McCaffrey's getting the handoff out of shotgun and makes it look like he's going to go up the middle. His tight end Greg Olsen is setting the edge on Yannick Ngakoue on the left side of the screen, which opens a hole in the middle, but McCaffrey doesn't want to hit that hole because the linebacker Quincy Williams has a good position on him and will probably hold the run to a gain of a couple yards. So instead of hitting the hole up the middle, McCaffrey bounces the run to the outside, then delivers a nice stiff arm on Josh Allen and does a flip into the end zone. This guy is an absolute highlight machine, and I really don't think there's a running back in the league right now who's more fun to watch than Christian McCaffrey. He's perhaps the best running back in the league when he's in the hole because you never know where he's going to go when he gets the ball. There are plays when all of his momentum will be going one way, and he'll stick one foot in the turf and completely change direction. He can make two cuts in the hole, which is rare for a running back to be able to do. On this play, Josh Allen does a nice job getting to the middle of the formation from the edge as McCaffrey's getting the ball, but McCaffrey makes a nice cut inside, which you should expect from a good running back. Most guys shouldn't take a tackle for loss in that situation, but what he did next was the real impressive part of the play. He made his nice cut left, then as he's exploding out of that cut to his left, he changes direction to juke the linebacker and turns the run into a 20-yard gain. He made two guys miss in the hole with just his cutting ability, and I don't think there's any other back in the league that can make that play. Whether he's making defensive linemen look stupid in the hole or stiff-arming linebackers on his way to the end zone, McCaffrey always is a threat to make a highlight reel play when the ball's in his hands. He's a fantasy football monster, an offensive superstar, but also makes plays that don't show up on the stat sheet. This next play from the Week 9 game between the Panthers and the Titans was without a doubt my favorite play from McCaffrey last season because it's so much more than just a flashy juke or hurdle. The Panthers are running play action out of single back, and McCaffrey's job is to check and release, which means he should wait in the backfield until he knows there's no unblocked blitzers, then release into the flat as a check down for his quarterback. When Allen takes the snap, McCaffrey sees an unblocked linebacker, Rashaan Evans, and neutralizes him with perfect technique. McCaffrey knows that if he stands straight up, he's going to get dominated by Evans because he's a bigger and stronger player, so he gets down low and delivers a really nice block to take Evans out. Now that Evans is no longer a threat, Kyle Allen can leave the pocket and find McCaffrey in the flat for a big gain. This is as good as it gets from running backs in terms of pass protection. He displayed the perfect technique on the block in the backfield, then the awareness to get back up and make a play with the ball. The Panthers could have a sneaky good offense next year if Teddy Bridgewater can pick up where he left off in 2019. But the truth is, even if Bridgewater doesn't live up to expectations in Carolina, McCaffrey will still find ways to produce. As long as he doesn't get injured, he's going to be a top 3 fantasy player next year, and I'd be surprised if he isn't number 1 again. The coaching change doesn't concern me too much because you'd have to be insane not to make McCaffrey the center of attention on the offense after the year he had in 2019. But that's going to be it for film session number 2. I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.